Hey witches, welcome to Busy, Gritty, Inked, and Witchy, a magical living podcast for the busy witch. I'm Morgan, eclectic witch of almost 25 years, Avalon priestess, and busy witch. Here we'll talk all things witchy, from current metaphysical happenings to my busy witch tips and tricks, and everything in the in-between. This podcast is my personal journey, filled with my knowledge, opinions, and unique way of looking at the world. Join me as I weave the magical and the mundane in every episode. Hey witches, welcome back to Busy, Gritty, Inked, and Witchy. I'm Morgan, and today I am talking about your ideal state for magic. This has something that has been popping up a lot for me recently, not only in my personal life, but my business life and my magical life as well, because they're all kind of, intertwined. What I'm going to talk about today can be applied to life. So you don't need to be a witch or a magical person to apply this philosophy. But as we are witches, having a magical state or the state that you're coming from to perform magic 100% will affect the outcome of your magic. It may not be every single time, but if you can switch your state before performing magic, then I think over time you'll find that your magic is way more successful and your spells are way more successful. Okay. So there is so much that I can say on this subject. I could go on for hours. So what we're going to be covering today is like an energy state 101. Yeah. And again, this can be applied to everyday life, not only your magic. Please keep in mind, this is my opinion. This is what I have found to be true over 25 years of magic and being a witch, 20 years of really working on myself, but also thrown in there 25 years of therapy, because it's all connected. I truly do believe that it's all connected. Okay. All right, so I do have notes, and I hate having the double spread, so we're just going to have to put up with sounds of my notebook. All right, so we're going to start with emotional states, okay? There are two, and if you're like, Morgan, there are 700 emotions. Yes, there are, but they all boil down to two emotional states, okay? All emotions boil down to two energies, and that is fear and love. Okay. If as I go through this information, I completely understand that a lot of it, especially if you are new to energy work, a lot of it, you'll be like, what the fuck? And I completely understand that. Okay. Just hear me out. Just have an open mind while you listen to this episode. Okay. So you have your two emotional states, fear and love, and that's it. So everything that we deem as quote unquote negative states, emotional states, or negative forms of emotional expression. And again, for those on the actual podcast, like listening to this, I'm using like air quotations, because all emotions show you, all emotions are there to show you a part of yourself. Okay. So that's the first thing you have to understand is I don't believe that there are good emotions or bad emotions, negative emotions or positive emotions, because I believe that all emotions give you information about yourself, whether it's your current state that you need to shift or something that you need to dig down into a little bit more. So please, let's start out with that. But basically fear, so emotions like anger, jealousy, guilt, shame, sadness, loneliness, anxiety, all of that, they all boil down to fear. So it's basically if you are in a state of anger and you were to continue to ask yourself why am I pissed off? You're like, oh, I'm pissed off because this lady hit my car. Okay, but why did that piss me off? Well, it pissed me off because now I have to fix my car and it's going to cost me money. Okay, well, why does that piss you off? Well, because I don't have a lot of money. Okay, well, why do you not have a lot of money? And then like you keep asking yourself why, and eventually you'll get down to some kind of fear, whether it is fear of not having something, fear of lack, fear of what if this goes all horribly wrong? Okay, so it boils down to fear. And then fear comes from a state of lack. Okay, so that's where we're going to go into, there's like two emotional states, but then that kind of flows into two energetic states. Okay, so a state of lack is an energetic state of being. Okay, so on the flip side of that, all quote unquote happy emotions or positive emotions boil down to love. So that's going to be happiness, joy, satisfaction, gratitude, excitement, hope, inspiration, calm. All of that boils down to love. And love, that emotional state, comes from an energetic state of power. Okay, so that's what it all boils down to. Those are your two emotional states, fear and love, which go into your state, your energetic states of being, which are either lack or power. Now, you cannot exist in these two states at the same time. You cannot exist in a state of lack. Like when you're dealing with a certain situation, you cannot exist in a state of lack and a state of power at the same time. You can't. Now, there can be areas of your life where you exist in a state of lack, and there can be areas of your life where you exist in a state of power. But I think, as humans, we should strive to just be in a state of power all the time. And if something happens that puts you into a state of lack, you are given the tools to shift yourself into a state of power. And of course, I think, especially witches, like we want to be in a state of power all the time. Okay. So yes, in life, but especially in magic, you want to manifest from a state of love and power, not a state of fear and lack. Okay. And if the first thing that comes to mind when I say you want to perform magic from a state of love and power, first thing that comes to mind is, Morgan, aren't you a gray witch? Don't you put bitches in jars in your backyard? I do, 100%. And I do it out of pure love and power. This is a great example of getting rid of your idea of negative magic and positive magic, or bad magic and good magic and all of that. Like, this is a great example of why you should just throw all of that shit out the door. Because when I banish people or situations, and I have done a podcast episode on this, on putting bitches into jars, when I banish people or situations, I am 100% coming from a state of love, because I fucking love myself, and this is the boundary I'm putting up to this person or this situation. And I am coming from a state of power, of taking my power back from this toxic person or this toxic situation. So I may be doing what a lot of witches deem as dark magic or bad magic or whatever, baneful magic. What I don't see them as dark or, bad or baneful magic, but I am 100% coming from a place of power and love for myself. Okay, so rather than continuing to let anger or jealousy or whatever rule me, I am taking back my power from this person or this situation, and I am banishing them. I am putting them into a jar in my backyard for my own protection. Okay? All right, next page. I love it. Okay. I love talking about stuff like this. Like, I really do, especially for those of you watching on YouTube. You can see how just absolutely animated I get. I love it. Okay. So when you perform magic from a place of fear and lack, this energy is then tied to your spell, tied to your manifestation. Okay. So there's a lot of love and light witches out there who do say, oh, only put out good so that only good comes back to you, or even Wiccans with the threefold law. But as much as love and light witches, some of them do or practice spiritual bypassing, which is like, oh, don't ever honor negative emotions. Always stay high vibe. That's bullshit. You have to honor the emotions to see where they come from and to explore parts of you that are wanting attention at the moment. Because basically your shadows, or when you have a trigger or something that's a part of you that's throwing a temper tantrum, saying, hey, look at me, look at me. So you want to honor that aspect, that emotion, that whatever that's triggering you, because that's a part of you that's screaming for attention. But when love and light witches are like, oh, always stay high vibe, because what you put out, you attract. The high vibe shit is bullshit, but what you put out, you attract kind of energy magnet thing. I mean, I have seen that is true. Okay. So that's why you want to that's why you want to shift your state from fear and lack to love and power. Okay. Because when you're coming from fear and lack, that's the energy that gets attached to your spell. So what ends up happening is you end up with just more fear and lack, because you didn't have that confidence, you didn't have that power, you didn't have that love for yourself or whatever it is that you're trying to attract in. So this is why a lot of witches, you'll hear them say, my magic or spells don't work, because you're not coming from a place of your power. You are casting spells out of lack. Well, I need this to happen, so let me cast a spell, when you don't understand that the magic comes from you. The power to unlock that is within you. You think it's outside of you. You think, oh, let me cast a spell to attract this thing to me, instead of thinking of it like, oh, let me cast a spell to know my own power and to unlock that power and that potential and that opportunity within me. Okay, I hope that lands, because it is a concept that took me fucking forever to grasp. Is that like, you are, and I always say you're the magic, you are the power. But what that means, and I did an amazing meditation one time. I think I actually happened into a meditation. Like, I want to say I might have been like falling asleep or something. But anyway, the way that I looked at it, or the way that it was presented in this meditation to me, this vision, was basically inside of you, at least inside of me, it was kind of like an Indiana Jones temple type thing. It was really cool. And there were all these doors, and some of the doors were open. Some of them were just slightly open. Some of them were wide open, and some of them were shut. And all of these doors within me, this inner temple of myself, all of these doors led to things I wanted. Led to money, led to love, led to, whatever it was that, and the doors were labeled, but I'm giving, I'm letting you all know the general of the meditation. And so that's when it hit me that all of the paths to everything I want are within me. I have the magic. I have the power within me. And it took that meditation for me to fully understand that concept. Okay. So that's how you can look at it. Okay. So if you are coming from a place of fear and lack, then this is the energy that's attached to your spell. This is the energy you may get back more of. Okay. Whereas if you are performing a spell or your magic from a place of love and personal power, then love and power is attached to that energy. And that's what you receive back, is more love and power. Okay. So the easiest examples of this are love and money spells. Because for a lot of people, for a lot of witches that are casting love or money spells, they are casting them coming from a place of lack in their life. Either they don't have love, which it can be loneliness, so they're coming from a place of loneliness, or they don't have money flowing into their life, which money wounds are a little bit of a different monster than all other kind of wounds. Generally speaking, money wounds come from a lack of receiving. So kind of how well you receive pleasure in life almost directly corresponds to how well you receive money in life. Anyway, that we could go into all that, a whole another podcast episode on that. So basically I'm going to use love and money to kind of give you an example or paint a picture of this concept. Okay. So To switch from a state of lack or fear to a state of power or love in order to cast a spell or to perform a ritual or whatever. You need to remove the outside factor and reframe your thought process to you, okay? Because that's going to shift the power back to you, okay? So what I mean by this, I even have post-it notes. On my freaking notebook. So for example, if you're wanting to cast a love spell, a lot of witches will do this from the place of, I want someone to love me. Okay, so right there, you're putting your power outside of you. You're saying, I'm going to cast this spell because I want someone to love me. So the power of that spell is not in you. It is outside of you. Okay. So a way to shift that is you want to remove the outside factor. What do you want? You don't want somebody to love you. You don't want, that's an external thing. That's not what you really want. What you really want and how you should phrase it, or a way to phrase it, is I am amazing and I want someone that I can share my full self with. I want someone that I can love and share my full self with who loves me for me. But you're giving the power back to yourself. Do you see how the phrasing is different? Do you see how the energy is different? Like on one hand, you're like, I want someone to love me. On the other hand, you're like, I want someone I can share my life with. One, you're putting the control and the emphasis outside of you. The other one, you are the emphasis. You are the power. You are the focal point of that spell. Okay? So that's the energetic shift. When it comes to money, this one was a little hard for me to try and figure out a correctly worded scenario. So I came up with two, because a lot of times when witches are casting money spells, it's because they have a fear, like, oh my God, what if I can't pay my rent? What if I can't buy groceries? What if I I just got into this car accident. I had a few medical bills. What if I can't pay them? And all of that comes from a fear. It's a fear of like, what if there's that anxiety behind it? There's that like, what if I can't do this? What if this doesn't happen? Okay. So you can at least admit that when you phrase things like that, it's definitely coming from a place of fear. Okay. So a way to kind of shift that is to shift it into one of two ways, or just two examples I have. One, I open myself to legit opportunities for abundance to flow into my life. So I open myself to the flow of abundance. I open myself to opportunities that create abundance for me. I create abundance. But I am open. But it's putting the focus, instead of like what happens out there if I can't pay my bills, to I'm taking back my power. I am open to the flow of abundance. Or another one, my bills will always be paid because I want to focus my energy on enjoying life. So you're putting the focus back on you. What do you want? Not what do you fear is going to happen if you don't get this, but what do you want? What do you desire? Okay, so that's the energetic shift that you want to be in when you perform magic. Okay, so before you perform any kind of magic, check your intentions, your emotions, your state of being. Okay, if you are in a state of lack, if you are like, I'm going to cast this spell because, and you state your intention and you feel yourself shrink, you're coming from a place of lack. If you feel yourself being like, I'm going to cast this spell because if I don't, I'm scared of what could happen. I'm going to cast this money spell because if I don't cast this money spell, I don't know if I can pay my rent. That, you know what I mean? That is that's coming from a place of fear or lack, or the fact that the solution to your problem is outside of you. Okay. Doubt is another thing that can set in if you're coming from a place of lack. Like, am I doing the spell right? Of course you're doing the spell right. And do you know how I know you're doing the spell right? Because you're doing it. You're doing what feels right to you. If you're reading someone else's spell and doing it word for word, but in the back of your head, you're like, am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? Then you're not doing it right. Because as you're going through magic and as you're going through a spell, even if it's someone else's spell, you have to be like, yeah, this is good shit. Or, oh, I don't like this line. I'm going to change it up a little bit. And then you change it and you're like, fuck yeah, that's my spell. So when you're doing magic, you need to be coming from a place of fuck yeah. Like, if you're not doing magic from that place of like, yeah, this is empowering, this motivates me, this feels amazing. If you're not coming from that place with your magic, we have a whole nother thing to talk about. Okay? You definitely don't want to go through the motions of a spell, because then it's not going to manifest either. And I did do a podcast episode a few back on why do my spells not work. If I'm saying this right now and you're listening and you're like, oh shit, that's me, go back and listen to that one again, okay? Because you have to be all on board for your magic. And if you're a witch and you're not on board with your magic, like if you're not there fully, why did you become a witch? That might be a question to ask yourself, because witchcraft is fun. It's empowering. It's motivating. You come away like, fuck yes, I'm a witch, you know? So yeah, if you're sitting there like doubting if you're doing the spell right, that's coming from a place of lack, of not knowing your own power and not trusting in your own power to do the spell right. Okay? A state of power makes you stand tall, makes you own your shit, and you know what I'm doing is what I'm supposed to be doing. Okay? That's a state of power. All right? All of this can be applied to life too. I just want to make sure that that is clear. All of this comes from a state, or you can apply all of this to life in general. And I highly recommend that you do that. Okay. If you want to, that's all. Okay. That's what I have for you all today. I'm like, I got to the end of it. And if this is something you all want me to explore more into, then definitely let me know, on social media, comment on one of my posts, let me know, or even on YouTube, let me know how this landed for you. And if you do want more, okay. I will let you know that if you are a part of my paid Patreon, which I'm going to get to here in a second, you're going to get a little bit more. We're going into the power of choice on my paid Patreon section of this podcast. Okay. So y'all be able to check over there. But if you energetics and states of being and states for manifestation and magic and all of that is something that we definitely dive into in the Ink Spirit Coven. So if you're ready for this, if you're ready to really dive into magic, how to live life magically, but how to manifest the shit that you're actually wanting to put your energy towards, then I heavily recommend joining the Ink Spirit Coven. That's my coven. So I teach a lesson and a workshop every month. You get a workbook of the month's energy, so you can work through that at your own pace. But I would love to have you join me. It is inkedspirit.com. And let me tell you real quick about the Patreon, which I just mentioned. At patreon.com/inkedgoddesscreations, I do have a free tier. The free tier gets you random stuff here and there when I feel like giving out random stuff, okay? But I now have 3 new paid tiers that I just launched over the weekend. And the first one is just a $5 tier. It is Spellbound Sound. If you are a fan of the podcast, this is the one for you. So what it'll get you is extra bonus content when I record podcasts, and the ability to vote on future podcast topics, and you get a shout out. So I'm going to get to those in a second. Then I have the $9 tier, which is called the Prophecy Portal. That's going to also get you a weekly energetic reading of some sort, and that's going to be just a general reading for everyone of like the week's energy coming up. And then I have the top tier is $13. It is called Magical Manuscripts. And the middle tier gets you the podcast tier as well. And then the third tier, which is Magical Manuscripts, gets you the previous 2 tiers as well. But that's where I'm going to help you build your Book of Shadows. So I'm going to be doing PDF uploads, 2 to 4 a month of Book of Shadow pages that you can either add to your digital Book of Shadows or print out to add to your physical Book of Shadows. So those are my 3 tiers for paid. Again, it's at patreon.com/inkedgoddesscreations. And Even though I just launched it this weekend, you guys, I am so excited that so many of you were just like, bam, I am here for this, because the Patreon I'm doing as a way to support me as a witchy creator. Okay. So I want to give my first shout outs. Oh, I love this. And I have goosebumps and I'm going to cry. Okay. Thank you so much. So Charlie was my first ever one. Like, thank you so much for being my first paid subscriber, Charlie. And yeah, I'm already like fucking tearing up because I get super emotional over this. This is amazing. A huge thank you to Stephanie, Damien, Diane, Justine, Christine. I'm such a goober. Stacy, Carrie, Nicole, Ashley, and Desiree. Now, those are the people that we have that joined the paid tiers before I, recorded this. So if you're listening to this, you're like, hey, I joined, you're going to be in the next one, okay? Because that comes with the $5 tier. But, since the upper tiers come with the lower tiers, then you get a shout out. Even if you signed up to get my PDFs, you don't even listen to my podcast, you're still going to get a shout out on my podcast, because these people are supporting me as a witchy creator, and that means so much to me. Okay, I have to go so I can contain myself so that I can record the Patreon stuff for this week. Okay. Oh my God, that's what I have for you all today. Thank you so much for being here and for giving me a platform to share my knowledge and my tips and everything with you all. And I will see you all again next week. Bye.